Oh my goodness. From our studios in Los Angeles and Tampa, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30. I'm Philip from Gantom Lighting Controls, and I'm joined, as always, by my delightful co-host, the amazing Scott Swenson of Scott Swenson Creative Development. Here on Green Tag, we look at the top news each week, and we explain why it matters to industry professionals in the themed entertainment and theme park space. And this week, we have been asked by many people, and of course it is the major news, is that Universal Kids Resort has opened for press previews. We have a lot of coverage, both video and written, coming out from Universal's newest foray into the family market, I guess, in the in the Texas region, right? So we'll talk about that, and then we'll just see how far we get with other stories. Right.
Yeah.
So... Right. I honestly don't know how long this is going to take because it's kind of like on its surface, I think that we all kind of know that nobody seems to like it, as in from a visual or from that standpoint. But I think it's, I guess I would like to approach it, just me personally, from the nuance of like, this is meant for kids. So we kind of have to take our adult hats off and say this is meant for kids like 5 to 9. Yep. And it's meant to be a local family park. Just a lot of interesting things. Like the park has weird zoning requirements with the city. So it's not allowed to open till 10 a.m. And most days it closes at 5 p.m. On weekends, 7 or 8 p.m.
If you're targeting kids, that's completely fine.
Right, except that it is there's no shade and it's really hot in Texas.
I haven't gone there yet.
Yeah.
Well, so, I think it's also too important to recognize, though, that this is, Universal has a bunch of different buckets that they operate in, and this is not necessarily even in the theme park bucket. This is in the, I can't remember what they call it, but the outreach bucket. This falls under the same bucket as Monsters Unleashed. No.
Yes,
Horror Unleashed. Vegas thing.
Horror Unleashed, yeah. Monsters Unchained is the ride at Epic.
Yeah.
And Horror Unleashed is, so I think it's, that's an interesting parallel. I think these are similar in that, I think the biggest issue, like, I don't, objectively speaking,
well, before we start, I was going to say, before we start dissecting this, Philip, maybe we should talk about what people are saying about it. I mean, let's start there, because I think that we can justify away all of the not so positive comments, but let's hear what some of the positive comments are. Number one, no shade. And I've heard that multiple times. I've read that multiple times. Obviously, I was not at the press preview, so I did not see it. But that is what I have heard many, many times. And I think the term under-themed has come up several times.
Right. I think those are the biggest. So lack of shade and under-theming have seemed to be the biggest. Also, everyone calling it like it's on theming for a prison, or that it is it's a Temu park, or it's what happens when you build a theme park using Amazon delivery services. There's a lot of like people kind of pointing out that it's very basic. A lot of the Shrek ride is basically just flats, that are propped up and painted, and a lot of people saying it looks like someone's backyard, like their neighbors do better rides. So there's a lot of that going around. On the split side, it sounds like most of the people that took children, like the children, seem to have fun. But of course, the biggest counterpoint to that is that that age group has fun with anything. So I think that's more the lens I wanted to analyze it on, is like, here's what people are saying, but these are all adults. The kids are having fun, and the kids is what matters, except that, which is fine. So in that way, you could say it was successful, except that I think you need to look at it in the context of families in the area. And that's what I researched most, is thinking about, let's assume that those kids love it. Okay, great. But those kids probably also like cardboard boxes that they could just hang out in. Like,
well, I mean, this is the perfect example of Christmas morning, where you open the big toy, and the big toy gets I got the big toy, and the rest of Christmas Day is spent playing in the giant box that it came in. So
that's exactly how I was thinking about this, right? Yeah. So that's what I looked at.
But you also have to recognize when the first Legoland parks opened, some of the same comments came out. Is that this is not fully envisioned. This is not fully fleshed out. But the kids don't care. the little kids don't care.
That's right.
I also think that Universal is its own worst enemy in the fact that it put the Universal name on it. Now, I will
I agree with
say,
that.
because people have come to expect very high quality, cutting edge animations, animatronics, that sort of thing. A
Right.
lot of high end whiz bangery, and I think that it's
Right.
interesting because the things that happened with Epic opening and the things that people didn't like about Epic opening are some of them are very similar, but it's also like, you've heard me rag on the Monsters ride at Epic because
Yeah.
they've got great animations, great animatronics next to pipe and drape. It seems unfinished. Now, had the whole thing been flats, and I would never have noticed the pipe and drape. So
Right.
they've set up their expectations for the Universal park goers to be so very high that when you see the name Universal attached to the park and it's not that level, you kind of go, oh, it's that.
Well, I agree with you. What I want to add is another dimension, which is something that was brought up by Theme Park Insider, where they basically, here's the quote. He said, "Before we got into the park, a representative from Universal said this park was meant to be a gateway to the immersive thematic experiences the company has become known for." They also said that this was meant to be a gateway to the bigger, better resorts offered in Orlando and Hollywood. I think the problem is our perspective as industry people is that this is an embarrassment. That's I think that's pretty universal. I don't think anybody that's a professional would say this is not an embarrassment from a theme park theming level. However, if you think about it just as local families that have never been to a Universal, maybe they have a different mindset, but to the point you were just kind of making, it's like, is this park too under themed to represent Universal as a brand? So will it actually end up discouraging people from going to?
Correct.
Universal just said that Epic is going to make them a week-long vacation, so you could go there. So in theory, you could see, like Universal just said, the representative said it's become a gateway to the immersive thematic experiences the company has become known for. If you're local and you go to this park and you're like, oh, this is what Universal is, I'm not sure you're going to now decide to pay for a week-long vacation to go to Orlando if you think that this is what Universal is. So I think that's,
and
so
that's,
I think
yeah,
to
that's,
your point,
and that's where I'm going.
That's right.
That's where I'm going. And what I'm wondering is, and again, perhaps hindsight is 2020, but if I'm looking at it going, okay, we're not going to quite invest in the A-level theming,
Right.
the A-level attractions that
Right.
people expect from the Universal brand. Why wouldn't they have opened it under an umbrella company? Why wouldn't they
I
have
agree.
opened it and just make it, even if they called it Epic Kids Resort or fun, something Universal aligned, I don't know, but not make it, because I mean, we all know that there are brands and sub brands for pretty much everything, and
Yes.
the top line brand is going to be the top line brand. If you can introduce people to the brand without saying this is the be all and end all, it does then serve that purpose. I will say that this quote that you just shared with us, to me, this sounds like, oh my God, we have to come up with an excuse as to why it looks like this. And, why it looks like this, I don't know. I do not believe in my heart of hearts that this was the intent. I do not believe that it was designed to be a lesser than park. I think the intent was to make it something that would represent the Universal brand, but for some reason, be that budgetary or timeline, or I mean, we all know the challenges that can happen.
Maybe
It
permitting
ended
too,
up
with
being
the city could have been that too.
absolutely. I mean, there's a million and one things. There's a million and one reasons for it. What it sounds like to me is, and I know Philip, you and I experienced this when we were in Riyadh. It sounds like the kind of attractions that they put up in Boulevard City, which are temporary and they represent high-end brands. I mean, really well-known IPs. It's sort of like the Five Nights at Freddy's that we went through. It's like, does this represent the level that Five Nights at Freddy's really deserves? No, it doesn't. It's flats and it's mediocre characters and it's, kind of a rundown rinky-dink sideshow attraction. but it's got the big IP. So it sounds as though they're trying to hide behind the IP, but what's ending up happening is it's undermining the IP. It's
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
making the universal name less than, and to act as a bridge, it's a bridge that's rickety that I don't think anybody wants to cross. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think the problem is with brands like this, you can't normally go backwards, right? So you can't. It's like they're trying to go backwards, and I think that's harder to do. Like Toyota can go forward and make a premium brand,
Hmm?
right? And I think Universal has spent the last decades, right, going more premium. Like Epic represents them going forward, but now they're
Right.
like in both of these cases, which has been the major complaint with Horror Unleashed as well, is that I think it's, again, to your point, it's all branding. It's like you had a brand that you've established through Epic as premium, and now you're trying to go backwards and make a Timu version, kind of a thing, which I think just is not. Normally brands just can't do that. It's not successful to go backwards. Like normally you can only start and then go premium. So like Six Flags can go premium. Like Six Flags can make The Conjuring as a premium experience and everyone loves it because they can go forward, but you can't normally ratchet backwards. And I think that, to your exact point, the only way that this would have been successful, other than the pricing, which we're going to have to get to, but the pricing and the branding, I think, are the two major problems. And it should have just been like the kids experience, and it should have just been a different horror name. They shouldn't have called it Universal Horror Unleashed because,
Right.
again, then they're comparing it. The problem is they put themselves into a box of their own making, because this is being compared to theme parks when it shouldn't be compared to a theme park. Same with Horror Unleashed is being compared to Horror Nights when it shouldn't be, because it's not Horror Nights and it shouldn't
It's a
be.
different
But
entity.
the brand themselves, though, they get up on all these panels and they themselves compare them to themselves, which I don't understand. Like, I'm like, you guys need to stop, and you just need to make a separate company, like you're saying, a shell company, and that's what it is. But I also want to get to the pricing. This is, I think, the bigger. So I always, as a CEO, I think my major job is thinking about strategy and thinking
Hmm.
about competitive mixes. And you and I have talked a lot about that, about just understanding your simple product offering in the market. And so that's what I did. I did a full competitive analysis of the local market by driving time, local things up to an hour away.
Hmm.
And the TLDR version is that this experience is 50% more expensive than almost every other experience meant for that same target group. And all of those experiences are higher rated and indoors or offer some sort of shade mitigation.
Hmm.
And in some cases, like Frisco has free splash pads and parks that are just free. And so if a family is spending $220 to $320, because the price point here is the cheapest, on a weekday is $55. It goes up to $80 per person on Labor Day weekend, which means a family of four is spending roughly $220 to $320 before parking or food just for one day versus $50 to $130. So like 50 to 220. That's the difference here. And I think that's the problem. The problem is it's twice as expensive as it should be. It needs to at least match, like you referenced Legoland. Legoland is $30
Hmm.
and this is 80. It doesn't make sense. Like I'm sorry, it doesn't make, like, Six Flags over Texas. Look at all these competitors. Six Flags over Texas, Six Flags Hurricane Harbor. There's Resort Waters Indoor Water Park. There's the Great Wolf Lodge, which has started selling season passes that you can
Hmm.
go to. There's the family water parks. There's this Frisco Water Park. There's Fort Worth Zoo. There's the Dallas Zoo. There's Dallas World Aquarium. There's Sea Life Grapevine. There's Legoland Discovery Center. There's Peppa Pig, right? There's Urban Air Adventure. There's Crayola Experience. There's museums. There's the free parks. There's zoos. I did the full analysis, and it's just not being 50% or more than every other offering for this target market within the driving range doesn't make sense. I'm sorry.
Well,
That's my
and
rant.
and and again, I think that the pricing is based on is based on the universal name. But when the universal name is not supporting the universal product, then you get them in once, and then you don't get them back again. And not only
Right.
does it undermine the success of the Universal Kids Resort, it also undermines the bridge concept to bigger and better things.
Right.
It goes back to many years ago. I know we've talked. I have to say Six Flags at least once, because if I don't, then it's not our show, it seems.
Yeah.
But going
Yeah.
back a long time ago, long before the merger, when Six Flags was going through one of its expansions and they were buying up every property they could possibly find, for the properties that they didn't feel were up to the Six Flags standard, that didn't meet the Six Flags minimum standard, which at the time was pretty low anyway. But they would call it by its original name, and then in very small print they would put a Six Flags property. So that's what Geauga Lake was, for example. It was Geauga Lake, a Six Flags property. Now, of course, Geauga Lake no longer exists, but it was one of those situations where they didn't lead with the Six Flags because they didn't want that brand. I'm not even going to call it brand confusion. I'm going to call it brand degradation. They wanted to make sure that the people knew that they were coming to a park that was fun, and they may or may not pay attention to the fact that it was run by Six Flags. If this had been the Frisco Kids Resort, a Universal property, that would have been a completely different story. To me, it's a branding issue. To me, it's a branding and a marketing situation. Yes, the pricing is outlandish, but I will say that at the FFA show, the Florida Attractions Association show, when we were looking at what PGAV and other survey companies were bringing to the table, they said you got to look at zoos and museums and aquariums a lot more seriously as competitors, because when you're in a cost-sensitive market like we are right now, families with kids, the kids, again, putting on your kids goggles and taking off your adult hat, kids are just as excited to go to the zoo and watch the squirrels as they are to go and see a Shrek ride that is made of flats and cardboard. So
that's exactly the point, right? Well, I think everybody who is arguing that the kids like it, I'm not disagreeing with that. So if you look at that lens, if your only metric is that the kids like it, then I think it could be counted as a success because the kids like it. But then my counter to that would be exactly what you're saying. Kids like anything at that age. And then it becomes for the parents, okay, if the kid's going to be happy with any of these experiences, why are we paying twice the price? And also, it's going to be in the heat when the aquariums are covered. When there's actually shade at zoos, there's like every other attraction in this area has plenty of climate mitigation, and it's at least half, if not less than half of the price. So why, if the kid is going to be happy no matter what, why are they going here?
Right. And let's just to sum it up and simplify it even more, kids will have a blast to go and play in the junkyard, but mom and dad ain't going to go with them. So, you got to make sure that when we talk about a family audience, and this is something that is really, really hard to convince statisticians and people who are counting the beans to understand, the family dynamic has changed. Everyone in the family families are looking for things that everyone in the family enjoys, that they can all enjoy together. Now, granted, it does start with the kids. The kids have to enjoy it first. But, if it's going to be just torture for mom, dad, and big brother or sister, or parents, parental units, caregivers, whatever, then they're not going to go nearly as often. They're going to be significantly less likely to get like an annual pass. Because they're like, oh, do we have to go? I know little Timmy loves it, but do we have to go? And so I'm hoping that they are either going to elevate the quality or reduce the pricing. Because if they're looking long term, I think that's going to be the only way to really make it happen. And I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume that this is a beta test for the possibility of doing other regional parks, and to see if they can do these kids resorts popping up in different locations. And if that is indeed the case, they got some learning to do. Now, in defense of Universal, they have made these, you know, horror experiences, and now the kids park, and they're experimenting, they're testing, they're trying, and hopefully they will figure this stuff out sooner rather than later. And I will also tell you, it is much easier to reduce your pricing than to increase it. So if you
Yeah.
start out high and you discover, oh crap, we're not getting the numbers we need, or we could be far more financially successful if we got more numbers at a less price, then it's much easier to make that shift than to go, oh my God, we can't handle the number of people we're getting at this price point, so we've got to raise prices. That raises a whole nother level of stink. So, and we can sit here and say people aren't happy. Here's my question: how do we know that the vast majority of kids either like it or don't like it? Because it's really only been media previews.
Yeah.
So,
That's right.
we're only looking at this through grown-ups' eyes right now.
Well,
And
no, I
I think
mean, I think I was clarifying. A lot of the reporters brought children, so I was looking specifically at what those children were
understood, but
saying.
they're kids who are, you know, it's not, in my opinion, it's not a broad enough base to draw data from.
Well, I think that would mean it would only get worse. I think if your point is
I
that
think
these are
that's very
kids,
possible. I
yeah,
think that's very possible.
because like media kids, for lack of a better term, usually go to a lot of experiences, right? So they've probably been to other experiences, and so if they're happy with it, then that's good. But it also means it could kind of
Well, it's
get
also that
worse
it's
potentially.
that media kids also get to see the experience in the best possible way.
That's right.
They're
Yep.
the lines are shorter. They get,
Yep.
they get the
They're not
best
having to
of them.
wait in the heat for like a
Correct.
ride, that's just like painted flats. Yeah.
So
That's a good point. It could get worse. Yeah, it could
as
get
the
worse.
park after the park actually opens, I'm curious to see. This is one of the things that I used a gazillion years ago. This is one of the things I used to do when I was booking bands for Busch Gardens, because a lot of the bands that we booked for Busch Gardens, yes, there is a connection here. A lot of the bands that we booked for Busch Gardens were bands that were at one time stadium fillers and are now still performing. So I wanted to see what they looked like now. So what I would do is I would use, like everyone else does, I would use social media, and I'd see what they looked like on YouTube now, and whether they still were doing a good show or whether they were just living off the name. And so once this park opens, I'm really curious to see what the videos look like from the people who were not comped in, who were not given free food, who were not told exactly here's the best shots that you're going to get, who were not set up to get all the content that they needed to make the park look good. I'm curious to see what it looks like when those videos start coming out. So
That's a good point, because even at its best, it looks bad. Basically, and
I mean, what I've so here's the thing. What I've seen, I wouldn't say is bad. Sure as heck wouldn't say good, but it's meh. But for $80,
that's
it's
right.
bad.
That's the problem. Is I think that's
It's not
why
worth the money.
That's why when I did my analysis, I wanted to look at it based off the context. What is the context of the local family? What are their other options? I think when you have a lot of options, I mean, there's some of these options I found in my research I didn't even know about. And I'm like, wow, like there's a lot to do for these families in this area, actually. And I just don't know how this is differentiated other than it is in the heat and totally exposed, and it is less good than Legoland and Sea Life, and like, so I'm kind of like,
and here's what it's got going for it, at least in the short term. It's the new kid on the block.
It's the new kid, yeah.
And it's bringing in IPs that are not in the area.
Yep, that's it.
If you are a Shrek fan, if you are a Jurassic Park fan, if you are, it's embracing those IPs that you can't get anywhere else in the immediate drive area. But
right.
At the same time, looking at some of these, Six Flags Over Texas is incredibly popular, as is Hurricane Harbor.
Yep.
Let's see, I'm just scrolling down here. Great Wolf Lodge continues to
yep.
up their game, up their ante. Fort Worth Zoo,
yeah,
excellent. I mean, it's rated as one of the top zoos, one of the top smaller zoos everywhere. Dallas Zoo, strong. Sea Life Grapevine. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, so all of these things are not, and I didn't even get to Legoland. So,
Yeah.
Peppa Pig, World of Play. I will say that when Peppa Pig opened, there were a lot of the same comments though. And that was, it
Yeah.
wasn't enough. It was a lot of, two-dimensional, or a lot of
Yeah.
concrete with a few things. But that also plays into the whole mindset behind Peppa Pig, because they don't want it to be
Yeah.
too overly stimulating. So yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see how this plays out. I will say that I hope, and I know they are. I hope that Universal Kids Resort is keeping an eye on this and is gonna track this without bias.
I don't know. I mean,
Without
I
bias.
agree with you. I think the wrap up, if there is one, just for me, for my competitive analysis thing, I'm sure people smarter than me and or with more data did a similar competitive analysis, and I'm assuming it's exactly what you said at the start of the show, which is that they probably had plans to make it differentiated in some way, like to make it like a better quality in some way, and that would have justified the price point and made it fit in this. Like, it's clear from my research that Universal was actually targeting the premium market in Dallas. Like, they're now the premium family offering, like based on their pricing, but they don't look like it. So to your point from the very beginning, something must have changed between when they first set up this whole thing, like we're going to be 50% more expensive than everything in the, or twice as, we're going to be twice as expensive as every other option with no shade. But people are going to come to us because we're going to be the Disney of Texas or whatever. I think that maybe was what that must have been the original concept. And then just somewhere along the way, this is what we ended up with. And I don't know.
Yeah. So based on based on NDAs that I have signed, I can't go into detail, but I think that's a really strong possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we have a few minutes. Let's see. Let's keep with Universal.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
Yep.
all the stuff that we've talked about about Epic is like, let's make it a nighttime park. Let's make it a nighttime park. Guess
Right.
what? They're encouraging
They finally
that.
did. Yeah. This is one of those weird things where I've known about this for a while because Gantum is used in the, like we've had product that has been installed for a light show but not been, used in the light show at all. And so we kind of were like, oh, something has to happen at some point with the light show. They finally announced the Universal Celestial Good Night that is happening there in Celestial Park from July 7th onward. And it said that the production will envelop all of Celestial Park, including nearly 600 synchronized light fixtures, more than 350 larger-than-life fountains, and 7 million LED lights embedded throughout the land. Guests will watch as every inch of the vibrant world from Luna to Apollo comes alive through meticulous choreography set to a high-energy musical score before culminating in a breathtaking fireworks finale overhead. So we haven't seen anything. Obviously, it is not going to come out for a few weeks. But I'm just saying there's no NDAs here. There's no I have no outsider information other than I know where our stuff is installed and I know kind of where the lights are and everything. And I do think this is going to be really cool because they do actually have lights installed all around the park area. And I just think it's going to be, the park's already so beautiful at night, and then you add this sequence and music. I'm not sure there's a way for this to be bad, basically.
I agree with you. And it's interesting because I've seen some of the beta testing and some of the elements and segments, and they're pretty, I mean, for those of you, let me put it this way, for those of you who feel as though the Epcot end of night show around the lagoon incorporates the entire park, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yep.
This is going to be, I agree with you, Philip. I don't see how this can be bad. Even I would go so far as to say, even if all of a sudden 25% of it just crapped out, I don't think anybody would notice.
100%.
Because
I agree with that.
So layered. From what I've seen, it's so layered. It is so in depth. And I think I think what it's really going to do is elevate the value of staying at the hotel, because the best place to view it is going to be in the hotel, because that way you can see it, en masse. You can see it from a 30,000 foot perspective, or from a all-encompassing perspective. At the same time, it's going to be really cool to walk through too, because just to be part of it is going to be amazing. Now, my only concern for American audiences is they're going to say, well, I didn't get to see everything because of where I was standing, because that's going to happen. But my response is, then walk around, come back again, come see it again, enjoy the elements, because you won't be, from what I've seen, based on what I've seen so far, you will not be disappointed. So, anywho, all right. Well, hopefully you weren't disappointed with this show, because we're all done. That's my best segue ever. This is the end of our show. Thank you again so very, very much for watching and listening. Hopefully we've kicked off your week and gotten your brains going. I'm sorry it wasn't about Six Flags. We'll try to do that again in the future. But on behalf of Philip Hernandez with Ganem Lighting and Control, and myself, Scott Swenson with Scott Swenson Creative Development, this is Green Tag Theme Park in 30, and we will see all of you next week.